The 5th and 6th grade Rangers are your 2017 Youth League Super Bowl champions, and the high school Rangers finish up with Eufaula on senior night. All that and more coming up next on the Ranger Football Podcast.
You're listening to the Ranger Football Podcast, brought to you by Southern Trading and Pawn and The Slab in Roland.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Ranger Football Podcast. We're actually winding this thing down. We don't have too many weeks left. This is week 11 for the high school Rangers, and we've got senior night coming up. We're going to close out the season with Eufaula. We're coming off a pretty hard loss from rivalry week. Last week in week 10, we played the Muldrow Bulldogs. We would always like to beat Muldrow, but that did not happen this season. But, yeah, hey, there's always more chances. We got a lot of the same group of kids coming back next season. We do have a few seniors who are going to make their way out of Roland High School, and we will honor them on Friday night. I don't know if we're going to start this at 6:30. That's the last word I got was we were going to try to start senior night at around 6:30 p.m., and then, of course, game time is going to be right at about 7 o'clock. So we'll talk more about Eufaula here in just a little bit, but first things first. We need to talk about our 5th and 6th grade Youth League Rangers. And before we do that, I just want to give a big shout-out to all the people from Atoka. The Rangers have been crowned the 2017 Super Bowl champions for our Youth League, and Atoka has assumed their role as runner-up to the Rangers, which we appreciate that. And also for all the people who have reached out from Atoka. They've reached out to the Youth League page, and they have blown up my personal inbox in the last few days, and they have blown up the inbox of the podcast, the Ranger Podcast Network. And so we just want to let our new fans in Atoka know that we appreciate you guys so much way down south there. Now, getting back to the 5th and 6th grade Rangers here, Coach Rocky Price and Coach DeWitt, these guys have done quite a bit this year. And also there's Coach Pratt from the high school, Richie Pratt, and then Josh Peters has also helped. And I want to give a special shout-out to somebody who this is a special kid. And I don't know if a lot of people know this guy or not, but I've gotten to know him over the last several weeks over this past football season. And his name is Austin Gibbs. And Austin plays for the high school Rangers, and he devotes so much of his time to the Youth League Rangers. And the kids look up to this guy. They look up to him a lot. And I got the opportunity one Saturday in the press box. Austin and Ja, they came up and took care of the clock. And I sat and talked with Austin about football there for a little bit. And he's a well-rounded kid. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and so I'm really glad that he has taken time out of his football season. I know he's got a family. So many things that a kid could be doing when they're in high school. But I can relate to him. When I was in high school, I coached 3 elementary basketball teams. And there were so many other things I could have been doing as a sophomore, junior, and senior, but I was coaching basketball. And I got 3 gigantic trophies out of the deal. We won a championship the first year I coached. We came in runner-up the second year, and we won another championship my third year. So I know how it is to be a high school kid and to take time to dedicate that to youth league sports. And so for Austin, we really appreciate him. I know Anthony DeWitt, our youth league director, he appreciates him. I was talking with Josh Peters, and he most definitely appreciates the way Austin has taken his time out to work with the 6th grade kids, the 5th grade kids. And so we want to make sure we give credit where it's due. So, Austin, if you're listening, thank you. And I know that there has been an order put in. We've got some hoodies coming out. Our youth league director, Anthony DeWitt, he made he's got a really amazing design coming out for our championship hoodies. And so Austin's going to get one of those. I'm pretty sure the coaches are going to get one too, the rest of the coaches. And, of course, the 5th and 6th graders are going to get those. And before we go forward, I want to talk about these kids a little bit because they went down to Wilburton, Oklahoma this past weekend. It was Saturday, October 28th. We went down. We had a kind of a long but short drive to the Super Bowl. And we went down to Wilburton where they hosted the final game of the playoffs. I believe our boys, our 5th and 6th graders, went 9-0 this season. 9 wins, 0 losses, undefeated, undisputed Super Bowl champions. And the game, the championship game ended in weird fashion. It ended with a halftime victory. We saw the people from Atoka essentially just pack up and go home at halftime. The Rangers were up 20-6. Let's see, Kewan Youngblood had 2 defensive interceptions, and he had 2 touchdowns. Ashton Peters also had a touchdown, and so we were up 20-6, and one thing led to another, and whatever. So Billy McElhaney is at the top of our roster, number 1. Dakota Price, number 2. Number 4, Brock Strine. Number 6, Cole Stevens. Number 10, Dalton Crosno. Number 11, Michael Taylor. Number 12, Peyton Pitts. Number 16, Landon Killer. Number 17, Blaine Caldwell. Number 21, John Gretzky. Number 22, Brennan Bentley. Number 24, Parker Pratt. Number 27, Kobe Campbell. Number 33, the Big Tank, Ashton Peters. Number 41, Logan Dow. Number 44, Tyler Manasco. Number 46, Kevin Guernsey. Number 48, Cash Bobbitt. Number 49, Eric McElhaney. Number 52, Joseph Stone. Number 62, Joshua Stone. Number 63, Ethan Dominic. Number 72, Roger Gross. Number 78, Clay Henson. Number 80, Jordan Royce. Number 84, Jaden Ross. And number 88, Kewan Youngblood. I understand that there may be a kid or two who wasn't able to finish out the season, but that's okay because all these kids are on the roster that I have, and so even if they started the season, hey, whatever, we'll give them credit. So that's our group of kids, and I know we've got a bunch of 6th graders who are going to move on to somewhat lesser known pastures next year. We don't really cover junior high football too much here with the Ranger Football Podcast, and I'm hoping we can change that. I'm almost going to be inclined to follow these guys around next year. And maybe broadcast a few live games. I mean, who knows if we've got everything put together. I'll tell you what we're doing. The podcast network, we are raising money. What we're doing is actually we're selling copies of the Super Bowl broadcast. I was broadcasting live on Mixler.com for the Super Bowl, and the CD, it's an hour long. It's just an hour-long broadcast because obviously we did not have a second half in there. Again, thank you to the fine folks in Atoka for that. And so it's only an hour long, but it is a good broadcast. It is detailed. For those of you who have heard, I don't know, I've heard a couple of people say maybe, and this is just a rumor, I don't know, they've said that maybe there's a little bit of controversy surrounding that game. But who knows? At any rate, on this broadcast, every move is detailed. Every move is mentioned. I think I even mentioned, I've listened to this thing back over and over and over again, and I don't normally do that. I don't like listening to my own work, but I went back and listened to this broadcast, and I even talked about which coaches had their hands in their pockets on the sideline. So there are a lot of things that are going around on Facebook, and everybody knows how Facebook is. About 90% of it is not true. And so we've read a lot of things on Facebook, but I'm telling you, if you want a play-by-play account of what happened at the Super Bowl, get a copy of this broadcast. They're on sale for $5, and all the proceeds, people, they are going to support and fund the upcoming basketball season. So here's what we've got to do. We number one, we're still wrapping up sponsors. I've talked to a lot of people about sponsoring the not just the Ranger Basketball Podcast, but the webcasts for each game. We're going to travel around with the basketball team, the high school team this year, boys and girls. We're going to broadcast both games live, home and away, all the tournaments. This is our plan anyway, if we can get enough funding for this. Home and away, we're gonna be at all the broadcasts. And I don't know if my football broadcast partner, Dennis McCaslin, is going to be with me or not. I think right now the plan is just for me to travel with the basketball teams and do these broadcasts myself. And it's going to take a little bit of funding to pull that off. So we've got to get us a hot spot. And speaking of hot spot, I would like to say thank you to Candace Thomas's mom, LaWanda. She's a beautiful lady. I don't know if you guys know who I'm talking about. But LaWanda brought me her iPhone to the press box in Wilburton. She hooked up her hotspot. We hooked my laptop up to it, and that's how we made that broadcast possible. And I'm going to tell you something. We had, total, during the broadcast, we had 163 people listening to the broadcast of the Super Bowl. Now, that's amazing because I thought maybe we might have 20, 25 tops. Wrong. I put the link up on the Youth League football page and the podcast network page before we headed down to Wilburton on Saturday, and within 2 hours, or maybe it might have been how many hours was that? 3 hours. Within 3 hours of putting that link up for the broadcast, we had over 2,200 eyes on our Road to the Super Bowl and our broadcast link. Over 2,200 people had seen that stuff on Facebook. And so I know a lot of people chimed in. I had people in the chat room. I was chatting live with a few people while the broadcast was going on. There was a lot of commotion there toward the end of the second quarter, which turned out to be the end of the game. And so I want to say thank you to everybody who listened in, especially two people in particular, John Paul Price. He's the older brother of Coach Rocky Price for the 5th and 6th grade team. And also someone I graduated with, Amy Beakley. She was listening live and chatting. She was interacting with us in the chat room. So thank you to those two people in particular. Also, Coach Pratt from the high school, Richie Pratt, his mom, Kathy Pratt, she was listening to the broadcast. And I know Richie had said something about that earlier in the day, that his mom wasn't able to make it to the game. And so that's why we did the broadcast. That's why we want to keep bringing this live to all the Ranger football fans, the basketball fans coming up. Basketball season is huge. I know last year, in particular, myself especially, I remember being up at my mom and dad's up in Tulsa and sitting with my dad, and my dad was saying, "Hey, have you heard any scores on for Roland for basketball?" And I said, "No, I don't think I have. I don't know who to get a hold of." Nobody was putting scores on Facebook. There were no live videos that we could find. At least I wasn't friends with anybody who had live video. So I know that just myself, there were two people in my family alone who were looking for Roland basketball scores. We were looking for updates on Roland basketball. And that's why we're raising money to make these broadcasts possible. That's why we went live for this 5th and 6th grade Super Bowl. That's why we're going live every Friday night or the occasional Thursday for Roland High School football. And that's why we want to do the exact same thing. I've talked to head girls basketball coach Greg Pratt. We've had a conversation about this in person as well as on Facebook. We've talked about, how, I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but it's just going to be, it's great to promote our school and to promote our kids and to give Roland Athletics a platform like this that we can put our brand out there and we can get people listening. Because I'll tell you, during basketball season, when we broadcast live from the Sequoyah County tournament, I'm going to broadcast every game from the Sequoyah County tournament. I'm not just doing Roland games. I'm going to do every single game that's there, and I don't even know where the tournament's going to be this year. And so not only have I talked to Greg Pratt, Coach Pratt, I've talked to Coach Lewis last Friday night. I let Coach Lewis know what was going on. And we've already, just like with the football podcast here, we've already got the basketball podcast submitted to iTunes and to Google Play and to Stitcher and to iHeartRadio. And I got an email this weekend that it was from TuneIn. It was from the TuneIn app. I don't know if anybody's familiar with TuneIn, but they are a feeder for Amazon products. So if you have Amazon Alexa, you can say, "Alexa, play the Ranger Football Podcast," or you could say, "Alexa, play the Ranger Basketball Podcast," and you better be prepared to listen because it's going to work. And so we're taking Roland Athletics to new levels here, and that's the only thing we're trying to do. I've said this at the beginning of the season. I don't know of any other school around here who's doing this kind of stuff. And for those of you who have followed me over the years, and there's been several of you, I started out when I was a board member with XFI and promoting MMA. I did a podcast for about 2.5 years for XFI and interviewed fighters all the time. And we do plan on having, especially when basketball season rolls around, we plan on having more student athletes come on the show. And we talked to Ryan Dean earlier in the year. We talked to Ashton Peters for the 6th graders. We talked to those two early in the season for the football podcast. But big things popping at the Ranger Podcast Network, I'm telling you. So the broadcast of the Super Bowl, I guess I veered way off. The broadcast of the Super Bowl, I've been mass producing these for days now, and right now I've got so many orders. In fact, I'm sitting here holding a stack of CDs in my hand, and these are all promised out to somebody to people. But I am going to produce more of these, and they will be ready to go on Friday, this coming Friday, at the last home game against Eufaula. And like I mentioned, that's going to be senior night. So I believe senior night's going to start around 6:30. The game should kick off around 7. If all goes well, that's how we should have things planned. I'm pretty sure that's the way things will go. And so if you want a copy of the 5th and 6th grade Youth League Super Bowl championship game, just send us a message. Get on the Ranger Podcast Network Facebook page. You can just type in Ranger Podcast Network on Facebook in your search bar. Go ahead and like that page while you're there. A lot of you have already. We've gone up a whole lot of likes. And again, another thank you to the Atoka people. They have reached out to us, and they have promoted the podcast. I've seen so many people sharing screenshots of the podcast, and we just appreciate the people of Atoka so much. And of course our own fans in Roland here. But getting back to the team, Coach Rocky Price, Coach Anthony DeWitt, Coach Richie Pratt, Coach Josh Peters, and I know Coach Strine has helped with the 5th and 6th graders a lot. Our quarterback for the 5th and 6th grade team is Brock Strine, and I know Mrs. Strine has done a lot of videotaping. She's done a lot of filming for the 5th and 6th graders this season, and so that's really good. And also, since we've wrapped up the Youth League season, I do want to give another thank you. Now, we did this last Friday night. We did it live at the game against Muldrow. I want to say thank you again to all the parents of Roland Youth League, the administration at school, the high school coaches, the student coaches, also Sheena DeWitt and the kids, Anthony DeWitt's kids, our youth league director. We've got the best youth league director around. You can't name one better. I've known this guy since we were in kindergarten. We've known each other 31 years now, and there's a reason why I'm sticking with him. So a big thanks to the DeWitt family, Sheena and the kids. They have taken care of the concession stand all year long, and a whole lot more than that, but on Saturdays at the games, the concession, the money, like we mentioned, we donated another record, an unprecedented record, $6,000 again for the second year in a row is what the Roland Youth League donated to Roland High School football. And so there are big things happening with Roland Youth League. Big things happening with Ranger football all the way across the board. And now, as I've mentioned over and over and over throughout the season, we're trying to parlay that into basketball season. And who knows, we might even broadcast a few baseball games. For those of you who know me well, Roland baseball, that was my jam. And so I would not hesitate to go broadcast a baseball game or 2 or 12 if that's what it comes down to. Also, the Youth League cheerleaders. Thank you so much to the cheerleaders. Our Youth League cheer director, Tanya Price, for everything she's done, and all the other coordinators for each grade who have worked with Tanya to make sure our cheerleaders are dressed in their outfits, and they know the cheers, and they do things so well. The moms who have taken time, and there may be even some dads in there who have taken time to do cheer practice. And it just takes a lot of time, takes a lot of dedication to make sure these kids are on point. And cheerleaders did a great job all season. Fantastic. Also, our first and second grade coaches, Marcus Dawes, Matt Ball, Jeremy Cantrell, and John Gretzky. Our third and fourth grade coaches, Wayman Potts, Jeff Brandt, Andre Massey, and John Castleberry, especially Coach Potts. Coach Potts, like I mentioned on last week's podcast, he kind of came in right at the last minute and said, I'll take this team. And we had a coaching snafu kind of late in the game. I honestly don't even know what happened. I'm just kind of talking out the side of my head here. But I know that we had lost a coach for whatever reason, and Coach Potts came in and put this third and fourth grade team together. And he actually took them to the semifinals of the Youth League playoffs, where they got beat by Muldrow in the semifinals. And then, of course, Muldrow went on and won last weekend. They won the championship. And so big thanks to Coach Potts and Mr. Brandt and Andre Massey and John Castleberry. Looking out to some more things. Also, a big thank you to the fans. I don't know if we ever thank the fans enough. If you're a fan, now we honestly, we have I put screenshots of the numbers for the podcast on Facebook several times, and I'll probably do that once again at the end of the season. We're averaging between 600 and 700 people a week listening to the podcast. And, of course, there's a few days. There are a few days between the airing date of the podcast, which is right now, Tuesday afternoon, and Friday evening when we play football, and Saturday morning when we used to play football, the Youth League. And so there were days where people could get in and listen, and we've generated a big fan base. And so for the fan base for Roland Youth League football, we want to say thank you to everybody who has come out to the games, the people who have participated, also the people who purchased raffle tickets throughout the season and made our fundraiser a gigantic success, which also played a huge part in the amount of money we were able to give back to the high school Rangers. The plan for next season is for that number of $6,000 to go up significantly. And so, we're not going to make a pledge here. We're just going to do the best we can. But we plan on raising the bar just a hair, and we'll do that every season. Also, if you are on Facebook, up in your search bar, type in Roland Youth League Football and go give that page a like. I know the season's over. But go ahead and give it a like anyway. You're not going to get bombarded with updates since the season is over. But we definitely want your support for that. And so with that, that's going to close out the 2017 Youth League football season. And on behalf of our Youth League director, Anthony DeWitt, and everyone in the entire trickle-down effect of people who make Roland Youth League football a great success, we all say thank you to the Ranger football fans and the people who have come out to support the teams, all the parents who have done an excellent job with the kids, the coaches, and our fans, everybody. I mean, I just can't say it enough. We want to thank everybody. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the high school team. As I mentioned, it is senior night this week, Friday night, about 6:30, I believe, is what time everything is supposed to kick off. And we're playing the Eufaula Ironheads. Eufaula is 6-3, and of course the Rangers are 2-6. Not a stellar season for the high school Rangers, but we have one-upped our win total from last season. So everything takes progress. I've heard a lot of people talk, and I've been part of conversations where some people have been frustrated, and some people have been ecstatic about how our team is doing. Let me tell you something. I'm just going to give you an example. Combined, my parents taught at Roland School for 45 years. Okay, I grew up inside Roland School, and I'm going to tell you what it means to be a Ranger. What it means to be a Ranger is pride. What it means to be a Ranger is sticking with your coaches through thick and thin, sticking with your players through thick and thin. It's not everybody's on a big Ranger high at the first of the season, and then all of a sudden we're 2-6 with the last game to go, and then all of a sudden everybody's sick and tired of football. That's not what it means to be a Roland Ranger. What it means to be a Ranger is you look at this record and you think, hey, 2-6, hey, that all that means is we got nowhere to go but up. We got nowhere to go but up from here. And I'll tell you one thing. With my dad being a coach, I don't even know if I was old enough to remember my dad being a coach. My dad came to Roland from Arcoma in 1982 is when he started. It was the month before I turned a year old. And so I don't even remember when my dad was coaching football at Roland. But I do remember nuggets of wisdom that I would hear my dad speak throughout the years. And I can tell you, there's nothing more frustrating to a football program and to a football coach than for the fan base to turn their backs on a coach or a program. That's frustrating. Not saying our coaches are frustrated. I haven't talked with them personally, so I don't know how they're feeling. But I'm just, as a fan, I want to make sure that I portray Roland football in the brightest light possible, because we may have a 2-6 season, we may have a 2-7 season, we may have a 3-6 season. Who knows how this game is going to turn out on Friday? All I know is that Roland Ranger football isn't going anywhere. We're going to be right back at it next year. We've got a few seniors graduating, but we have a ton of juniors coming up in the ranks. We've got a ton of sophomores coming up in the ranks. You look at guys like I think we've seen in some of the games. We've put some other people in. We've seen names like Colton Howard, and we've seen. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? Cole Davis. There's a ton of these kids, and they play hard. They go at it hard, and they're learning right now. There's a system here, and so when these guys they're kind of watching the people above them. It's kind of like Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre all those years. Aaron Rodgers sat on a bench. He watched Brett Favre. All of a sudden, Favre goes on his merry way, and Aaron Rodgers steps up and takes the reins. He wins a Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that the Roland Rangers are going to win a Super Bowl next year, because we don't even play for one of those. But you never know the possibilities, okay? All we have to do, and this is also what it means to be a Ranger, we just have to have faith in our system. We have to have faith in our school. We have to have faith in our coaches. And we have to have faith in our players. Because at the end of the day, they're still just a group of kids, okay? They're not professionals. They're not in college. We don't pay them to do what they do. They come out and they just want to impress the fans, and they want to play football. So all we have to do is support these kids. It's no different than Youth League. The people who raise all kinds of hell in Youth League and make fools of themselves, we have no place in a stadium for people like that. And I'm glad that we haven't had to worry about that. That also goes for high school, and I'm glad we haven't had to worry about that little problem this year either. But it's a great thing when fans just come out to the games and they just want to support who they're watching. So that's what we have to do. We just have to have faith in what we're looking at. We have to have faith in who we're watching. We have to have faith in our coaches, our players, our school. And that is what it means to be a Roland Ranger. So on the Max Preps website, I'm scrolling down, and I'm not seeing any stats at all for Eufaula, which is kind of disappointing. They have no rush yards per game stats, no passing, no total, no tackles, no sacks, no points. They've got nothing. I am looking at the Roland side of things, and I am seeing some stuff here. As far as all these yards per game and defensive stats and things like that, but there's nothing to compare it to. So we're not really able to make a big comparison to how we're going to fare with Eufaula. But going back through the schedule, Eufaula lost to Shakota, which so did we. Eufaula beat Spyro, which so did we. Eufaula beat Heavener, so did we. Eufaula lost to Muldrow. So did we. Eufaula beat Stigler. But we got beat by Stigler. So, and Idabel, I'm pretty sure Eufaula beat Idabel as well. And, of course, we had a 36-0 loss there a couple of weeks ago in Idabel. But, there's a lot of similarities between these two teams. So I'm going to tell you right now, senior night, this game can go either way. Don't look at the records. I don't want anybody to think, well, they're 6-3, they're going to kill us. That's not what that means at all. That's got nothing to do with anything. We have not played these guys yet this year, so there is no head-to-head record to go off of. And I'm going to tell you right now, Eufaula's 2-2 on the road. So they're 50-50. This thing could go either way at the drop of a hat. And I'm going to tell you right now, those seniors for the Rangers are going to look at this game, and they're going to think we need to come out smoking, and we need to win a ball game. They want to go out with a win. This is their last football game of their high school career. I don't know how many of these kids are going to go play college ball. I don't know if they've been talking to scouts. I don't know any of those details. Nobody said a word to me about that. So as far as I know, this is their last football game that they'll ever play in as a student athlete. So I know that these guys are going to want to come out and get a win. Just some notable names here. Eli Dalton is he's significantly above the national average in passing yards per game with 163. Eli also has about 154 total yards, which the national average on total yards, I guess for a quarterback, is 37.5, which is kind of ridiculous. I don't know why their national average is so low. We must have some not so stellar players in the country, which is expected. But hey, also another name that I wish they would fix on Max Preps is a kid who we first saw in the Heavener game. Number 3, his name is Javonte Youngblood, and if you've listened to the broadcast on Friday nights, you've heard me singing the praises of this kid. When we want to move the ball, when we need to move the ball, we need to put it in the hands of number 3, Javonte Youngblood. Now, do we have another running back? Of course we do. Number 5, L.J. Williams. But here's the difference. These kids, these other teams we play against, they know that number. They know number 5. They know the name L.J. Williams because L.J.'s a talented kid, and he has ran all over some of these people. But when you put a new face in there, when you get a guy like Javonte Youngblood and you start handing a ball off and he's doing magical things with it, it doesn't get much better than that. This kid, it's like almost every single time he touches the ball, he is either at a first down or close to a first down. And so I don't know how old Javonte is. I don't know if he's a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior, but I'm hoping that we see more out of him in the years to come. And also on the defensive side, number 58, Zach Muller, he has been an absolute beast on the field. And he's a junior as well. And so we're going to see Zach again next year. And so, there's just a lot of things going on. Right now, our overall record, as I mentioned, is 2-6. We're 1-3 in the league. We're 1-3 in non-league play. So we're 1-2 at home. We're 1-4 on the road. And I'm just hoping that we can put another win on the board on senior night. That's how we all want to cap the football season for the high school Rangers. We just saw our youth league Rangers. We capped the season with a Super Bowl win. And I know our other kids, our 3rd and 4th graders, some of the 4th graders are going to move up to the next level, to the 5th and 6th grade team. And our 2nd graders are moving up to the 3rd and 4th grade team. And so, these kids that are moving up, they're going to want to do a lot better the next season. And I know our juniors and sophomores for the high school team, they're going to want to move up. They're going to be juniors and seniors, respectively, next year. And they're going to want to do so much better than what we've done this year. So, and that's a beautiful thing because the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. When you've got a 2-6 season going right now, some people think the sky is falling, but this ain't no Chicken Little, folks. This is the Rolling Rangers, and the sky is the limit. So we're going to do all we can to step the bar up for next season. I know, especially with the youth league, we've got big plans for fundraising and I'm not going to get into all of it. I'm just going to tell you we've got big things in the works. So just a little recap here. I do want to talk once again a Ranger basketball podcast coming up. I am going to be talking with Coach Greg Pratt here in the coming days, in the coming weeks. We are going to get more information. I'm going to get a couple of rosters from him and maybe find out if he has like a student stat person I can connect with on Facebook, and maybe we can get some information. I don't have a lot of connections with the football team, but I've been doing the best I can, keeping you guys up to date with as many stats as possible. And so we want to parlay this over into the basketball season. We want to make sure that our kids are promoted the right way and promoted to the fullest. Also, before we cut loose, I do want to extend our condolences to the Richards family and the Wilson family. Most of you know that Debbie Richards passed away this past week, and Debbie was very special to a lot of people in Roland and to the people in the school system. And she is someone that I was around when I was really young, because Dave and my oldest brother used to play baseball on the same team way back in the day, and Debbie's husband Mike was one of the coaches for that team. And so Debbie has passed away, but she's no longer in any pain. She's not suffering anymore, and so we should all be so lucky. But our condolences to the Richards family and the Wilson family, and that's how we're going to finish up this episode of the Ranger Football Podcast. So we will have one more episode next week. We will have a recap of the season. We will talk a little bit about the way the Eufaula game went down. We'll try to find out some more information on basketball. Also, here's the deal. If you know of people who are business owners, local business owners around here, and I've talked to quite a few so far, but if you want to sponsor, not the Ranger Basketball Podcast, if you want to sponsor the game broadcasts, the live game broadcasts, shoot an email to rangerpodcast@gmail.com, or get on Facebook, type in Ranger Podcast Network up in your search bar, go and like that page, send a message to the network, okay? We will do everything we can. We've got a price sheet. We've got different sponsor packages available, and this is all a great thing. It's going to support our kids. It's going to promote the Roland Ranger brand, and it's going to get Roland Ranger basketball out there just as far as Roland football has been out there. So on that note, we're going to close it off for the week. And again, a big thanks to everybody who has been associated with the Roland Youth League football program this season. And until we have more information next week, we will see you then on another episode of the Ranger Football Podcast.
You're listening to the Ranger Football Podcast, brought to you by Southern Trading and Pawn and the Slab in Roland.